Welcome to yet another episode of the New Space India podcast. One of the hallmarks of an established sector or an industry is the presence of a regulator, especially if it's one that is dealing with technology. You can see that in India with the telecommunications sector, where you have the TRAI and the TDSAT, which are both playing the role of a regulator and an adjudicator in the sector. Given that many of the startups are about to take off in the space sector in India, one of the interesting proposals has come up with the Takshashila Institution placing a space policy draft which places the creation of a Space Regulatory Authority of India, an SRAI, along the lines of a TRAI, and an STSAT, a Space Dispute Settlement Tribunal, on the lines of TDSAT, as a part of the overhauling of the space policy efforts in India. If any of you have read the space bill that was drafted by the Department of Space, it did not mention anything about creating an independent regulator that can comprehensively look at several different aspects of the entire value chain and come up with regulations that are specific to each of these activities. In this episode of the New Space India podcast, I talked to Utkarsh, who is one of the lead authors of the New Space Policy proposal by the Takshashila Institution, on the institution level changes as well as the primary aspects of the space policy changes that need to occur in India for the launch vehicle and the satellite startups to be successful alongside the other downstream startups in India. Utkarsh, welcome to this episode of the New Space India podcast. Great having you here as a guest.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
I have known you, in the recent past with Takshashila's work into getting into the new space policy. Give us a little bit of your own background and, what got you into reviewing space policy in India.
Yeah, sure. So I actually grew up in a very science-based family. Everybody in my family is a science person or is an engineer. So I was very interested in math and science, and I pursued engineering at IIT Roorkee after that. So at college also, I did fair bit of technical stuff, formula student, not space related, but always grew up on space related things like Star Wars, Star Trek, like as most of us, Interstellar, Gravity, and these sorts of things. Then I worked in financial risk management for 2 years, but eventually I shifted to policy. And here I was told that this is actually kind of serendipitous and not my plan. I was told to look into this. I felt very interested, and that's how we started doing this.
So you come from a background of having to have a very fresh look at space, because it's like some of us we've been trying to look at this for so many years now that you get blinded, I guess, by a few things. So what was your first reading when you looked at the space policy landscape in India, and what did you feel like?
Firstly, first things first, I think all of us are aware that ISRO has been doing great work for some time, and we have been fed with this, and probably rightly so, because they have been doing some incredible stuff and fairly thrifty organization. But when I started looking into this, what we felt collectively as well as individually is that we do not have the SpaceX and the Blue Origins of the world. And if not these organizations, we not nearly enough close to that, in spite of being a very, very old space program per se, right? So we realized that there's something which is wrong and something which is not going according to plan here. Also, we kind of knew, considering India's path and India's history, that there was a lot of government involvement where probably a private space could actually act. Although private participation in space has been less for some time because of the nature of the business, but still I think we were not up there as we should have been, considering that we were amongst the initial nations to have joined the space race. Or space organization is like 50 years old, if I'm not wrong. So just some dissonance there that we wanted to solve for.
So what was your starting point of learning about all the space policy landscape and so on? Because this is an interesting, perspective, because I get a lot of people who ask me, we are interested in space policy and law, how do we get into it, especially from an Indian context?
So I think we started with the idea that ISRO seems to be the be all and end all of space related activities in India. Then we started talking to people, to you and to a lot of wonderful people in the new space community that you created. So we figured out there are people who are actually coming forward and doing and building products and are wishing to go directly into space and are not merely limited to being suppliers to ISRO. Oh, that has been the case for a very long time. Over the past 10 years only, I think we have seen a significant number of startups coming up and doing wonderful things, participating in competitions abroad and in India. I think they started with the Google Lunar X Prize team in us. Recently, I was listening to the guys at Pixel who went to the hyperspace competition. So we have a couple of people coming up and trying to get there. What we felt was, while talking to a lot of you, we felt that it's still, because it's a very small community and we have limited number of people, all the decisions and all the activities that are happening on a case by case basis. There's no institutional setup to probably say this is how we do things and this is how we enable people to do things and this is how you build up your company from a startup to a mid-level company to a corporation. And this is how we'll enable and help you get there. This is something which we felt was missing.
Did you have a look at the draft policy ISRO had released on, what they call as the draft space bill?
Correct. Yeah. So we went through it. So what we could figure out in that was probably everything was a very government focused thing. And there was not specified distinction between what kinds of activities you do and what kinds of regulation and government intervention and governance mechanisms will be there. It was a very broad based one size fits all framework where we'll say, we'll just regulate you no matter what are the financial, what are the safety and what are the operational risk involved amongst other things. We'll not take a nuanced approach where we tell you that, okay, so you have these things, these are fairly safe and you should be able to do this. No, we'll just regulate everything. That is what we think. While talking to a lot of people in the industry also, we could figure out that it's very broad based and very non-nuanced kind of a framework. So that's what we tried to solve for when we wrote this out.
Okay, and what is interesting in this process is, how do you talk to the stakeholders, right? And for your draft that you've come up with, the Takshashila Space Policy Proposal, the New Space Policy 2020 document, can you throw a little bit of an insight into how, you talk to the stakeholders, and then, who were the stakeholders and what was the process of talking to them and collating all the information?
Some major stakeholders were people like you and people in the community who were entrepreneurs, who were actually facing problems in going to the government, and were actually, there's lots of uncertainties and blind spots which people didn't know because a lot of these things were happening for the first time. So these were the things that people were facing. Then we talked to a lot of people in academia and people in the think tank space, where we think people had been researching and saying that institutionally the mechanisms that we have are not conducive to the growth of the private sector. Because we have one single organization which is doing everything from research to building launch vehicles, to building satellites, to being a regulator, to being a license provider, to being a compliance agency. So it's just a lot of concentration. Even then we don't know who to go to inside the organization and how that person will react. So that was something which we wanted to solve for. So while talking to it, it was pretty clear to us, as from the industry as well as the academia side, that we needed to separate out the research and implementation part of it from the regulation and the governance part of it, which the agency which provides licenses and registration for the private sector players. So that was one of the fundamental learnings that we got from it.
And how was the approach to, setting up the draft itself? Was it a team of people at Takshashila writing this out and different sections of it, or?
So as you know, we actually called a space policy conclave where we saw participation from many people in the industry as well as in the academia and in the space law and space policy sector. And then we called some people out of them who were interested in to have more detailed discussions on every part of it. And then we wrote it out and we reiterated and we came out with the policy draft document. We are still actually looking for suggestions and see what are the things that we can pinpoint and enhance in the.
Right. So can you throw a little bit of an insight into, what is in the proposal, the whole, structure of it, and does it address everything that is out there to be addressed, and how different is it from the ISRO draft and so on?
So as I said, the fundamental problem was being in too much concentration of of power and responsibilities in one single organization, which is the ISRO. So right now, what the structure looks like is ISRO comes under the Department of Space. With ISRO, there are multiple government space organizations like the Satellite Center, the National Remote Sensing Center. All of these research/service delivery organizations come under the Department of Space, which directly comes under the Prime Minister's office, right? The chairman of ISRO is actually also the de facto secretary of the Department of Space and is also the chairman of the Space Commission, which is supposed to be the policy making body of the space sector in India. So it's all ISRO at some level. What we propose is something of a decoupling of the policy, the regulatory, and the service delivery roles of the Indian space research organizations. So what we're saying is we need to clear the decks out of ISRO as well as the private players so that both of these can actually leverage their strengths. So there'll be an ISRO whose core competency and whose core job would be the research on frontier technologies, as well as building and executing missions of national importance. And we propose there needs to be an independent space regulatory authority of India, which should be responsible for setting standards and best practices amongst various parts of the value chain of the space sector, which is responsible for registering and licensing space activities, for compliance and monitoring of these activities, because India is a part of the international regime and is a signatory of the Outer Space Treaty. So we need some level of compliance and monitoring as well as liaising internationally. We can probably talk about this in more detail later. Satellite communications requires liaising and talking with International Telecommunications Union and various international organizations to book orbital slots and frequencies. So these are the things that we need a government body to do and facilitate it for the private players in India. So an independent, autonomous regulatory authority is actually a first recommendation for the policy proposal. The second thing that we plan to and we propose is an independent space dispute settlement appellate tribunal, which would essentially be responsible for adjudicating disputes and settling appeals against the regulatory authority. So it will be the first line of appeal against any action taken by the regulatory authority. So it will resolve disputes between the licensors and the consumers. And any decisions which the regulatory authority or space regulatory authority of India takes could be challenged in the dispute settlement appellate tribunal.
Right. I guess, the inspiration to this is more the telecom sector where you have the TRAI and TDSAT.
Correct. So that's one of the areas that we have deregulated well. And although there continue to be issues like the one recently where TRAI asked for debt from a couple of companies, but we still think that's an important and interesting model, and it's one of the areas that we have done well when we compare it from the pre-1991 to the era that we have today.
Are there any other sectors, which work on the same, level where they have a regulator and a tribunal, separate out, which has a very core technology aspect to the industry?
So there are independent regulators in the financial domain, but in the technology domain, I don't think so.
Right. I guess, that's the challenge in this process as well, right? So how do you appraise, a government where such a setup can be changed and, overhauled to a new setup?
Correct. It's a significantly big change, I think. But I think the positive part of it is that we have seen the benefits of it happen in one particular sector, and here, which is space, which is a highly technology based sector, and there is some level of government involvement required because of the fact that we part of the international treaties and international fora, and India as a sovereign nation needs to follow them. We definitely need a regime or a setup or a framework where we can actually leverage private and the public sector to the best of their abilities.
Right. So when you looked at the formation of the SRAI, as you said, the Space Regulatory Authority of India, what would be its composition, or, what would be its purview of work? Have you kind of thought about that and, give some insights on that?
So as you said, there'll be like 4 major functions of the SRAI. One would be setting standards and the best prescribing best practices which different players in different parts of the value chain in the space sector can follow. Then it will also set certain guidelines according to which certain registrations and licensing of space objects and space assets would take place. It will be responsible for monitoring and ensuring compliance, whether these things that the SRA says are being followed or not, and if not, what are the penalties and what are the terms for revoking of these licenses. And then it will be responsible for liaising internationally with the Telecommunications Union and keeping the voice of Indian players in the international fora. So an SRAI would be responsible for the terms and conditions, for what the safety terms and conditions, the technical requirements, the financial requirements, the environmental safeguards that a particular space activity, say a launch provider, needs to follow to execute it from Indian soil, and what are the licenses that this provider needs to take so that it is able to compete in the market as well as provide launches to Indian and international players. It will be responsible for facilitating fair competition in the industry. Then talking about important issues like liability, what are the clauses of liability, what are the breaches of contract, what are the things that happen. Because a lot of financial risk is involved in launching a vehicle. What is the insurance that they need to do? What are the indemnification clauses? Up to what point the government is able to protect them from certain mishappenings. Then laying out the minimum technical and safety standards which need to be followed. I have already talked about the quality, safety, and the technology of service. Then kind of measures to protect the interest of the consumers as well as protecting the interest of the businessmen. And in the longer run, give out certain templates on how to go about development of space technology and other matters related to space technology in general. When the composition of an SRAI is concerned, so what we have talked about is it will have some 9 full-time members, some full-time and some part-time. The part-time members would be more than the full-time members. So this works something like this. So there's a non-executive member and there's an executive member. The board shall be dominated by non-executive members, which can actually play the role of a principal vis-a-vis the management or the permanent members, which will be the agent and which will be responsible for carrying out the targets set up by the entire board. Some kind of a checks and balances and a target setting mechanism wherein the authority has some targets, it achieves those targets, is accountable for them, and the members have the ability to and discretion to take decisions for the authority. So when I talk about accountability, things like for a regulatory authority, what are the number of licenses given versus what are the licenses denied, the number of orders that were challenged in the appellate tribunal, the percentage appeals which were won by the regulatory authority. So these are the kinds of metrics that a regulatory authority would be required to give so that they remain accountable to the system.
You mentioned that you talked to some of the stakeholders here, including some of the new space companies and so on. So did you also happen to, talk to space investors in India who have invested, their own capital into these space companies, and what was their feedback if you did, and how did they perceive this lack of regulator or dispute settler in the system?
So not a lot of them, but from a general sense that we get was there's a certain level of uncertainty in the system which actually inhibits them from investing in it, because there's no laid out or written statutory guidelines which say that these are the procedures and these are the ways in which things will be done, and things can be changed at any point in time according to the whims and fancies of certain individuals. So that's the risk you have when you don't have institutional mechanisms and instead rely on individuals. You can get wonderfully good human beings who can enable you to do things, as well as the opposite can happen. So this uncertainty is something I think which makes a lot of people inhibits their investments into the industry.
And what about the entrepreneurs themselves? So were they keen on something like this, pushing for a regulator and so on, or were they saying, we don't really care, and we just no policy is better than having a harsh policy?
So it depends. So different people in different parts of the value chain have different feedback. So in general, I think there's a general consensus that we need a separate regulator, which is not ISRO and which can function independently. I think there's a general consensus around that. As far as say something like satellite communications, these are the things, transponder capacities. These are things where we have been lacking for some time, and there is some consensus that because ISRO has been involved in it and they have not been allowed to run the show and allowed to participate in this game, and we have been lacking as a country there. So we require some kind of regulation and some kind of governance mechanisms where it becomes easy for the private players to enter. So I could see that happening in the satellite communications stages, and to some extent, I think in the remote sensing part of it as well.
For somebody to look at this draft and to pick it up, to really execute it, who are the stakeholders? So do you want to present this draft to, I don't know, like this Parliamentary Committee on Science and Technology, or what is the expectation with the new space policy draft?
Correct. So we actually want to present it to these, as you said, to the Science and Technology Committee, the Parliamentary Standing Committee, as well as to players in the ecosystem who are comparatively more willing. We would want to present it to Antriksh as well as to NSIL, and take it as an industry effort so that people in the industry who back it up and say that this is what we want. And eventually, when we come to this, a bill can be drafted out of this policy, which can actually be implemented. So this is a broad outlook and framework that we think should happen in the industry with the backing of the industry players, because they are some of the most important players and they want to do well and probably reach space, as I said, right? New space players. And then we can take it forward. So first industry backing, and then we go to various organizations like the Parliamentary Standing Committee, to different MPs, as well as to Niti Aayog and other government think tanks, and then we take it from there.
How accessible do you think all these players are? Because getting time from any of them and even getting access to any of them is almost extremely difficult all the time. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Correct. So that's a thing that will always happen in the policy space in India. So those of us who work here, work in this space, fairly attuned to that fact. Having said that, I have seen that if there are enough industry backers and if there are enough people who say that this is what we want, and if they keep at it, we get time and we can actually drive change. To give you an example, if you see the drone space in India, which was screwed over by the government for some time, but eventually now we have a drone policy which is very progressive, and people have gone there with wide consultations with the government and with the industry stakeholders. We are actually getting there. Space as well, I think, because the industry is so vibrant and so growing, if we keep at it, we can reach there. All of us are interested in getting this because all of our businesses would depend on this, right?
Yeah. So do you get a sense of timeline for all of this? Like based on your experience, would it be like, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? What would, given that, we're also in the middle of all this COVID economic fallout and, many other things?
Leaving apart the COVID fallout right now, because that's an unprecedented thing and it requires a whole new level of calculation. But I think there was some momentum in the space regime in India for some time, because the draft space bill, whatever its quality be that as it may, there was some momentum and there was some thinking that we need to go in a way where we can actually leverage the private space sector in India. Although that got shelved, we could hear that there were people who were interested in this. Now that the COVID outbreak has happened and how things place is, it's supremely unpredictable in my opinion, because we have far more difficult problems to solve, far more difficult and immediate problems to solve in the near term.
Yeah, I mean, that is also one thing that came up. I just saw that Jairam Ramesh, who's the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee that is overlooking also ISRO, has made a statement saying,
Gaganyaan should be postponed. And so I don't know if, any kind of these reforms will also see a back foot, given with all the economic fallout in the other sectors, which will be, of course, interesting to see.
It's a difficult question to answer, to be honest. I also saw the video. To be honest, I'm pretty happy that over the past couple of years or 10 years or so, we have reached the stage that people are not asking questions like, why do we want to go to space if we cannot put food on the plates of the people? At least we are not having those questions being asked. We are more in this realm of large public capture of imagination from ISRO. So I think that's a positive step. And probably, yeah, if we have certain examples and certain players, and we could have ridden that wave, and we still can. But yeah, COVID is a dampener.
What would be your general sense of guidance to somebody who wants to get into this kind of space policy? Is it possible to build a career out of this in India, or is it too early for it?
In the space sector or the space policy sector?
In the space policy sector specifically.
Okay, so that's a difficult question. But so right now, what we try to achieve through this draft is a very broad outline of what the institutional structure should look like. But once we have an institutional structure, there's a lot of scope in going into much more detail about what are the exact regulations or what are the exact governance mechanisms that an SRAI should have. What are the exact functions that an SDSAT should have. So these are the building sub-legislations. These are the areas that we need a lot more research and deliberation and a lot more involvement in. So this is one of the areas that I think there is scope for entry when we talk about space policy. The second part of it is I see from the space military and the space defense angle, where India also has commissioned the Defense Space Agency, and there is a general sense in the world of looking at space as a new frontier and acknowledging it as a domain where we need to safeguard our interests. So how that plays out and which policies and how do we react to that geopolitically, that is one area where I think policy professionals can look at. So yeah, those are the two areas. And I think, and the third probably practicing area where you have lawyers and space professionals coming in would be as more and more players come in, we'll have more liability insurance mechanisms, we'll have more business related outcomes and more contracts being built up, more or indemnification clauses. So I could see a lot of lawyers and policy professionals coming there.
An interesting case here is to kind of put the telecom sector against the space sector and see, how it matches up. Telecom sector, of course, has, like giants participating in it, and including not just, local people, but people who are internationally, like, Vodafone or whoever it is who wanted to invest in India. And, that pushed the government to deregulate and also put these things together, be it a regulator or a kind of an adjudicator as well. So given that we have hardly any FDI into the space sector that is directly flowing in, so no real foreign interest in all of this, and that the players that are playing in the private sector is also typically very small startups or people who have no real greater voice in the ability to reach governments at policy making level. Do you think the progress in setting up any kind of these kinds of reforms will take a backseat based on all of this?
Yes, I think if you have more big players, say a Reliance or a Mahindra, or who are interested in coming into this sector, that will definitely give it a good, because obviously the reach towards the government increases, and if there is more money riding, and if people put them out where the money is you will actually see reforms, which would actually, I think, in my understanding, it will give a good push for the smaller players in this sector as well. Having said that, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, because if you enable them, there'll be investors who would want to invest in smaller companies, as well as there'll be big players who would want to come and do it on their own as well, right? But if you don't build a system where there's policy certainty and where there's some kind of stability in the sector, at least from the government intervention angle, you'll probably not see them. So this will happen parallelly as more people come in. there'll be more pressure on the government to actually ease up things and build out scenario where regulation and the governance is easy and pro private parties, as well as if the government takes an initiative and does this. I think the sense that this is a fairly big industry and fairly big chunk of the market is left to be captured is starting to build in. And as that comes in, you'll have more investors and you will have more people coming in into this sector.
So for the creation of SRAI and STSAT and so on, is this done through legislative policy making where a special law has to be brought out to create them, or how does it work?
Yes. So for the SRAI and SDSAT, you will require a legislative action. So a space policy bill, which would set in how these agencies and how these organizations are set up. And then these organizations can take it further from there, where they can define sub-legislation and how the governance and regulation of different space activities takes place.
Right. So you talked about already STSAT and its composition and how it will work and so on. And SRAI, of course, is I guess it will be a totally different one. And you would want to have a mix of technical and legal experts there, right?
Correct. Basically, technical people, legal people who understand how the industry works and who understand how the legal aspects of it work, in the sense because we are actually signatories of the Outer Space Treaty and the subsequent four treaties that we have signed, as well as a member of the UN Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space. So we need to be cognizant of the international laws and respect them and build sovereign laws which can actually govern the actions of individuals as well as companies in India.
Right. So let's take a few examples of companies and then talk about future potential scenarios. There are, of course, coming from the upstream of stuff, people who are planning to build launch vehicles. At least two of them have been funded quite well recently. So, what would be like the role of SRAI in all of them, and how would they benefit by changes in this policy landscape?
So currently, they have to compete with the SLVs and the other government space agencies, as well as the private space agencies from around the world. So what would happen then is they'll know that this is the agency that they have to go to, which will be responsible to give them these checks you need to do, from safety to environmental to financial responsibility within this time, and we'll give you a license within a time-bound manner. And then you can obviously go and launch a vehicle from an Indian spaceport or wherever you want. So it will become a much more streamlined process where people know from the website of regulator that these things that I need to follow. This is the point at the point of launching. Okay, so one thing that I should clarify here is all the governance and the licensing takes place at the time of launch or before that, not when you build something at your home. If you make a rocket at your home and keep it at your home, the government has no business troubling you and telling you cannot do this. Once you go and take your rocket to a launch pad, then there are certain requirements that you need to follow, and so that you can launch from a launch pad, right? So it will become a much more streamlined process so that people know what to do, when to do, and what are the requirements to achieve a license. And the regulator should be responsible to build an environment where private players are actually encouraged to launch from India. The regulations are such that they are not prohibitive or restrictive. In fact, they are promotional of the private sector involvement.
Right, and it's the same for somebody who's building satellites. I suppose there's many rules on how do you get frequencies allocated, how do you export a particular satellite, or how do you export it to another country to launch from another country. All of that is kind of unclear at the moment.
Yes. So yeah, that's what I've tried to say, that define what are the agencies who will do that, and who are the teams that you need to contact, how do you need to do that. These are the things that these organizations, SRAI, needs to define once it is set up. So a legislative action would only take care of the setting up of these bodies, and then this organization would be responsible for setting out exact and detailed guidelines for different players as to how to achieve a license and how to go about their business and what kind of government involvement they would require. so that they will stay within the law.
Essentially, the difference from what you have put out as a draft against what ISRO has put out as a draft is that the ISRO's draft is only governing the private sector or the emerging private sector, and your draft is more so looking at a comprehensive overview where ISRO is also coming under the purview of it.
So one of the problems which we saw with the draft policy was it was a one size fits all approach where you say everybody would come under the same regulation or same government scrutiny. But that is not required and that's not called for, because the risk involved in every space activity is different, right? So we need to go into much more granular levels where we can say that somebody who uses commercially or freely available data from the Bhuvan app or from the remote sensing apps and adds value to them is not supposed to be under government regulation, versus somebody who provides a launch vehicle who would be required to undergo certain regulation. There's safety and financial risk involved there, right? So we need to understand that governance should take place at the right time and in the right measure, so that people are not prohibited from their actions, as well as the country and the state can and safeguard its interest and its obligations as well. For example, another example, say if you have a private player coming in who wants to have a manned space satellite sometime later in the future, that player would have to go comparatively greater scrutiny because human life is involved. So that risk factor is a major determinant of how much governance is required for that space activity. So we need to define that much more closely and much more comprehensively. That's what we have tried to do.
Have you had a sense of what changes could have been done to the ISRO version of the draft? Because they did ask for any comments, and I'm not sure what is going on with the changes, or if it's completely stalled the efforts. Do you get a sense of?
So we are actually in the process of drafting a whole new bill from the policy, as well as taking some consultations from people in this field. A whole new draft bill which can be used as it is, instead of providing comments on that, which can also be done, but we'll see where that goes.
Okay, and this is an independent effort that will be based on the policy proposal that you have put together already.
Yeah, but yeah, so we are still in the process of doing that, and when we do that, we would want comments and suggestions from the New Space India group as well.
Okay, that's an interesting thing to put out, I guess, because I don't think there was any other proposals independently put out to not just the new space, but essentially all the space activities together. What I've seen so far is individual industry groups, either in the geospatial industry or some other particular part of the industry in broadcasting or something like that, put out recommendations only specific to their industry, but nothing overarching in space.
So that's actually the intent behind this. It's to be broad based, in the sense that we kind of understand, and we do not have a separate regime for every part of the value chain. We do not have a SATCOM policy. We do not have a remote sensing policy, and we do not have another policy for launch vehicles. Instead, we have a broad-based framework which talks about all the players in the value chain, as well as is granular enough to understand the nuances and difference between these, and suggest governance mechanisms for each of these activities. So a policy framework is a non-binding legal document, right? So this is an expression of intent of what we try to do. A bill is something which is actually implementable and which will actually govern activities once it is implemented and once it's passed by the parliament. So that's the next step from this.
Right. Did you have any templates or countries that you saw as extremely good in terms of the way regulatory authority and adjudication kind of authorities are set into play to be kind of copied with India, for example?
And New Zealand has come up with a fairly liberal space regime, where they are allowing launch vehicles, promoting launch vehicles is from different countries from the New Zealand soil. Then there are regimes like the United States where it's fairly developed and there are fairly independent agencies. But here also there are some problems which we saw and which we heard was that in the US people are troubled because there are too many agencies they have to go to, and most players want a single window clearance. So that is something which is a lesson for us, and which we have tried to say that at SRAI would have teams which would be responsible for liaising with different people, and which would be responsible for giving a single window clearance to a player which comes to it for a license or for registration. Then UK has, I think, has gone in a similar direction where they have instituted a regulatory agency.
I guess, when you look at this from startup or even a normal bigger company's perspective, there is a few things that come as an interplay between different government organizations. So, for example, right now there is a need for DOT, the Department of Telecommunications, to get involved while frequency allocation, while somebody who is dealing with explosives in rockets, some other department is coming under purview. So SRAI should also be an overarching umbrella that hosts all of these departments, right?
Yes. So there are multiple ways of going about this. So either you have representatives from different government bodies and agencies as part of the SRAI, or you have the team liaise with different people in the different responsible agencies. However, if we want to build something from a startup's perspective, I think I would want something which is a single window clearance, and my point of contact being SRAI, and SRAI actually liaising with different players and helping me with the final steps that are needed to be taken. That's what I think should work in a way that is conducive for the private players.
Of course, there is many other things that one could think about in supporting, like startups or others in the sector. It could be, creating challenge-based models. It could be in having specific, funding instruments for different use cases and so on. How would that be accommodated in all of this in all of this exercise?
Correct. Funding needs to take place, and more investment needs to take place from private investors, as well as there needs to be some financial allocations from the government agencies and from the government as well. So what we have talked about in here is something which India could do well, or ISRO could do well to incorporate, is something like NASA's Small Business Innovation Research Funds, or STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer Funds, wherein they say that we invite certain startups, we invite 8 research grants on these particular topics. If you meet our requirements, we'll provide you money for prototyping, for manufacturing, and for going to business. Then there are things that the government can do in terms of tax benefits and tax breaks, build special economic zones, have clusters like the Kerala Space Park, where you have players coming in. You have scientists, you have researchers, you have entrepreneurs, you have venture capitalists, you have lawyers, probably policy people who come in and work out of a certain area and build a cluster, so that all these things happen simultaneously and cohesively to build the industry as a whole.
Do you see this happening in realistically in kind of what timeline, in your personal opinion? When do you see, at the present moment, given the situation we are in, what would be your fair estimate that we could have some things like this set up in India?
When it comes to SEZs or space clusters, that is something which I think is happening and which we can achieve in a fairly short time, say next 5 to 10 years. That is something which I'm fairly positive about, because we have had SEZs, and these are models that have taken place in India for some time now, and we have some sense of how this works. Policy change, I think, would require a sustained effort from the industry, from the people involved in the space sector, to actually make the government realize that there's a definite need for this to happen, and that's how people will stay in India. And you need to show a trend that people are willing to or are having to go outside of India because they are not able to function in the country. That I think will take some time, maybe 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I hope I hope it doesn't come to that, because essentially then we will be losing out so many initial players that I guess that's the natural way of things to happen, right? Because essentially some things lose out, and then people say, okay, we are now losing opportunities and we have to open up the sector, and that's how you need to kind of create success stories, and only based on the top of that will you see regulatory changes, I suppose, right?
Correct. I think it's fairly important for the startups that we have. The next 5 to 10 years can be game changing or game breaking, and we need to see change. There's significant will, and I think there's significant incentive for them, for the government machinery to work in their favor. So yeah.
In summary, like how can people participate in your effort? Because I think it's interesting what you guys are trying to do. How can just people who are following like the New Space India community, or generally interested in the sector, how would you suggest that they contribute to this effort that you're undertaking?
Oh yeah, so multiple ways. So I have been and I will be sharing the space policy document that we have created, as well as the bill that we plan to create on the space policy groups, as well as they can contact me on my email ID, which is utkarsh@takshashila.org.in, and then we would be soliciting comments and suggestions, so that at least, so what we wish to do is we need to have a consensus within the industry, that okay, so this is what we want, and this is the level of government involvement that is something which we cannot avoid, and this is the best way to go about it, and then we can raise it as a single voice to the government, and so that this can actually see the light of the day.
So Utkarsh, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was really nice having you, as a guest, and good luck with your efforts with the space policy proposal, and also now, the draft legislation that you guys are putting together. It's really amazing to be, working with you guys, and I look forward to making more progress.
Thank you so much, Narayan, for having me. It was my pleasure. I really appreciate the community that you have, vibrant community that you have created, and I learned a lot from it. Thank you for having me.